When talking about health, our mind usually focus on things like blood pressure, heart rate, or whether we have hit those 10,000 steps or not. What we don't realize is that health doesn't just revolve around our physical body. It actually goes far beyond that. For example, if we feel mentally suffocated, our body will eventually get tired. But if we exercise, our mind become even fresher. So it is actually about the kind of health that lives in the quiet spaces of our thoughts, our resilience, and what makes our days even better. Now, I want to shift the vibe a little bit to something that I think a lot of students secretly struggle with. Have you ever guys heard about imposter syndrome? Basically, it is the annoying feeling where you feel like being cheated, even though you have worked hard and get good grades, you still feel like you don't actually deserve it. You start thinking, I was just being lucky. Or soon, everyone is going to realize, I don't know what I'm doing. It is like you're waiting for someone to point a finger at you and say, you don't belong here. And if we look at the current situation, this feeling is everywhere, especially with social media boom. We are constantly seeing everyone else's win, their perfect photos, and their hustle. It makes us feel like we are the only one struggling behind the scenes. We start comparing our internal mess with everyone else's external perfection. And that really takes a toll on our mental health. To discuss more on this matter, we have with us today someone who is truly incredible. He is a psychiatrist by profession, but special for this episode, he will be addressing how to make mental health support accessible for everyone. He's a doctor, an educator, an author, and most importantly, a passionate advocate for a kinder and more resilient society. A warm welcome to Dr. Rozanizam Zakaria. Assalamualaikum, Doctor.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
All right, before I begin, let me share you the amazing background of our speaker. Dr. Rozanizam Zakaria is an assistant professor at the Kuliah of Medicine, IIUM Kuantan. While his academic journey took him from the University of Adelaide to University Science Malaysia, his true impact is felt far beyond the classroom. You have probably seen him on TV Al Hijrah, RTM, or maybe you have caught his segment on Radio Zayan. And what I love about him is how he takes these heavy, complex psychological issues and turns them into simple advice that actually makes sense to us. He does not just treat patients, his goal is always the same, making sure no one has to struggle in silence just because they don't understand what is going on in their own heads. He makes psychiatry feel like a human. Please welcome Dr. Rozanizam, and thank you so much, Doctor, for being with us here today.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me, Dada.
All right. Okay, let's go to the first question, perhaps. Dr. Rozanizam, why does moving from being a big fish in a small pond to a small fish in a big pond trigger such a massive crisis of identity?
Right. Thank you so much for the question, Dr. Sham, and allow me to begin with my sincere grateful to Mahallah Sumayyah, Dr. Sham personally for inviting me And I'm glad to hear that today we are having this conversation about mental health, a topic that perhaps sometimes ago were taboo to somebody, something that's difficult to be talked about. But today we are talking about this important topic from the perspective of not only speaking about illness per se or disorders or treatment, but we're talking about something that we can do to prevent mental illness from happening, which is essentially talking about our own mental health. Given that 75% of adult mental health problems start before the age of 25, I suppose talking about mental health should start way earlier. So you don't have to wait until one become a depressed patient or schizophrenic patient to be ready to talk about mental illness. So we should start talking as early as our kids when they are in their primary school, secondary school, and more so university students these days who are, I suppose, not foreign from the issues and topics of mental health. And today we are talking about imposter syndrome, as Dr. Sham has beautifully highlighted about it in the introduction. And one of the things that we discuss along the line of imposter syndrome is about the struggles that university students experience, because this is the stage of life where these become more evident. We don't talk about it perhaps earlier on in their life. Late adolescent, early adulthood is normally the range of age where these issues become more evident, primarily because it is closely attached to the issues of self-identity, self-esteem, personality development, in which some may experience struggle to some extent to understand who they are as a person. And along the line of struggling with this identity, one issue props up, as you highlighted before, that is, who am I as a person? Am I really this good? And sometimes this question props up during this stage of study, this stage of age, perhaps because when they were a lot younger in school, primary school, secondary school, a lot of things that's happening in their life comes almost naturally. They just go with the flow. Everyone's doing XPM, everyone doing exam. Some get good marks from others, and people are just following the flow. But once they come to the stage of university, they start to realize that I can no longer just follow the flow. I have to make decision. And having so, they start comparing themselves with others. Why are these people achieving this? Why are these people capable of making this decision and not? And they start questioning themselves. And so to me, personally, I think the changes from what's happening during school and what's happening during university is a normal process. Everyone going through this. It's a sign that we are growing as a person. So we face different kind of challenges. But perhaps another way of looking at it is because our environment has started to change. And this is something that I think as a student in the university start to need to realize and grasp this reality. That is, you are now in charge of your life. You now have to make decision. And it doesn't mean when life changes, it doesn't mean that you are less capable, but it's just that your environment change. You need to make more decision, bigger decision, and you need to be more mindful of action that you take. And you can still be a person that you were when you were in a primary school or secondary school, but now embrace the challenges and embrace the opportunity that happened and take that as an opportunity to grow rather than problem that you have to face or struggle that you have to bear with. And so I suppose that's one way of looking at these changes more positively, I suppose.
All right. Well, we move to the second question, yeah, doctor. Even after getting good grades, many students feel like they're just being lucky, and that one day everyone will realize that they don't belong. So why is it so?
So that's essentially the essence of imposter syndrome. That is when we are in the state of constant questioning our capability, our competency, and start being blinded by the actual capacity and capability that we have. So normally, as you said, people would disregard their effort and perceive their success as merely luck or merely opportunities or as result of others. So, for example, they work hard for their assignment, they get good grades, but they see it's just because the assignments was not that difficult, or the lecturers are just being nice, or perhaps because we are new, so they don't want to make us feel bad about ourselves, so they give good grades. So what happened there is slowly you are building this distorted view about yourself. So instead of recognizing you as a person who are capable of making effort, a person who are capable of embracing challenges, instead of that, you start to perceive your success externally as a mere coincidence that happened in life. So this can happen for various reasons. Perhaps one of the most common one that I see, it relates back to your self-confidence. So perhaps something happened along the way when you were growing up that shakes your self-confidence. Perhaps you are living in a constant state of criticism. That can happen as well. So some of our students brought up issue where they said, I was never praised for what I did growing up. Success was almost default. I mean, you are expected to be good because all this while you are good. So when they are struggling and they show efforts to achieve what they have achieved, so people forget that that happened actually because they have done something to themselves. And when this happened repeatedly, so over time it become patterns. And why imposter syndrome become important to be recognized is it can be one of the doorsteps into a bigger mental health problem. So, for example, depression, anxiety. So, imposter syndrome itself is not a disorder. So, you can't claim medical certificate or illness just because you have imposter syndrome. But when we see people who struggle with chronic burnout, depression, anxiety, and when you look back at their life pattern, sometimes this is what we see. They live in a constant state where they disregard positive things that happen in their life, and their mind kind of automatically zoom into the negative things that's happening around them. And that can be harmful if you don't realize that's what you're doing. And eventually, if problems happen, that's just enough to tip you over the edge of getting mental illness.
So I think that what the point that you highlighted just now is if imposter syndrome is not being controlled, it can turn into a more serious issue like depression or anxiety, right? So we often focus on the mind, but how does the constant stress of pretending show up physically, like through exhaustion or constant headaches?
So sometimes when we talk about stress, people tend to see it as a psychological issues, which is true to some extent, but we also need to be mindful that stress is also very biological, which basically means our body is designed in a way that stress will happen because stress is a way that we ensure that we are safe. So our brain is designed by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala with sensor, to put it simply, to detect when we are in experiencing threat, for example, which trigger the stress response. So the cortisol hormone release from the brain, the adrenaline that release from the brain, these are all biological changes that happen to the brain. Now, what happens is when you experience short or small amount of stress, all these biological changes that happen in brain is useful. So, for example, perhaps our students can relate with the topics of fight and flight based on their study in Form 4, Form 5 about stress response. So when we see something that is threatening, like we see dogs chasing us, so our brain will release all these hormones, all these chemicals, so that it can prepare our body to fight or flight. But unfortunately, what happens in stress that is not real, for example, exam stress, interpersonal stress, future stress, or past stress or trauma, our body produces similar changes, but we can't run and we can't fight. So what the changes that happen in our brain will eventually hit the rest of the body. So if it goes to the heart, it causes our hearts racing. So we get palpitations. It goes to our body, we sweats, we shakes. It goes to our brain, we get headaches. It goes to our blood vessel, we get high blood pressure. So imagine this happening over periods of time, days, weeks, months. So that explains why people who experience chronic stress will eventually develop physical illness. So sometimes the headache that we experience, if there's no biological or physical source of it, it's actually a sign that we are experiencing certain level of stress. Or even when we are feeling stressful, our immune system reduce, our immune system capacity reduce. That make us more prone to have, for example, fever, infection, or even chronic illness. And so these are the things that sometimes we don't realize, but stress has psychological components to it as well as physical components to it. So managing stress is not just about curbing the issues of depression and anxiety, but also preventing you from getting physical illness, getting sick. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Cool. All right, doctor, how does seeing everyone's perfect study lives on Instagram or TikTok distort a student's sense of their own progress?
I think, Tasham, everyone compares themselves to others. That's natural. It's almost natural to us. We compare our beauty, we compare our voice, we compare our wealth, we compare our family. But what happened these days is the extent of comparison become wider than what it used to be. So I commonly give example where in the past, maybe when we grew up, our parents will compare us with perhaps neighbors, compare ourselves with cousins, and that's it. But nowadays, with technologies, everyone else's life have been projected onto the screen. So people compare not only to person next to you. So the borders of who you are going to compare yourself with is now blurred, almost non-existent, that boundaries is. And that's where the problem is. But the issue is, in real life, you are able to see both sides, the good side and bad side. So for example, your parents compare you to your neighbors. Look at him. You know very well, because that's your neighbors. You know they also have perhaps some not so good things about them. But the problem with social media, the problem with the intelligent world that we're living in, the so-called intelligent world that we're living in now, there are filters that perhaps mask all the negativity that attached to it. And people decide what they put up, what they don't want to put up online, for example. So you tend to forget that all the good things that you see online also have the negative side. Maybe not necessarily negative side, or you see success, but you don't necessarily see the way towards the success. And it makes you feel as if the success is almost guaranteed and automatic because the person A or B do so. And so I think that's the struggle in this world when it comes to that. And more, I think, problematic if you do not have your own standard or values for you to hang on to. So you get swayed to other people's standard, other people's values, and then later you struggle because you never know other people's struggles, and you hope that all that matters is I want to achieve whatever that people achieve. And that's, I think, too much to ask for anybody, not just for adolescents, not just for youth, even us as parents, adults. If you keep comparing yourself to others, you feel exhausted because the race never ends. Yes, exactly.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nizam. Okay, I think this question is very relevant because we have seen students becoming high achievers, and some of them they are really they are credible leaders. So these two category of students, why does it feel so much harder for them to ask help and admit that they are actually struggling?
Okay, all right. I think in the beginning, success was earned because of their effort. But eventually, because they're high achiever, they are leaders, they are good at what they're doing, people tend to start thinking that success is their rights. It's almost attached to them as parts of themselves. And so having those kind of ideas or perspective in life makes them believe that therefore I have to live with this standard and never show to others that I cannot be as successful as what other people think. So perhaps at some point in their life, they start living based on other people's standard. So what people expect them. So as a leaders, as a high achiever, what do people expect them? To be good, to show only the good sides of them. So if at any moment they show their flaws or their weakness, so that's going to take away that privilege, in which that privilege is, of course, something that we are happy to have. And so eventually what happened is people mask their deficit, mask their deficiency, and leading to the point of asking for help is deemed as weakness rather than the process of getting better. And that's very problematic because one of the things that I always remind people is even if you look at the examples by Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he's a great person, greatest person of all. But when he was asked to perform certain tasks, so for example, to hijrah. So what did he do? He asked for companionship from Abu Bakr. He asked other companions to help him out. So Sayyidina Ali has specific roles. His children has specific roles. His other companions has specific roles. It is possible we view that as solely his greatness. He did that all by himself, but he has shown us even the greatest person in humankind do get help from others.
Exactly.
And what are we to say that for me, I don't need help? For me, if I ask for help, that means I'm weak. So are you telling that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is not capable enough to do that? And so I think this is a simple example to shake that perspective and reality. That is to remind people that asking for help is also a sign of strength. And in fact, it's not easy to ask for help. And if you do so, then you are showing your courage beyond success. Okay. And that's who we are as a human being.
Yeah. Right, Doctor. In a competitive campus, how do we stop the habit of measuring our behind the scenes struggle against everyone else's highlight reel?
Yeah. Okay. Number one is redefine success. I think that's very important. As a mature adult, now I assume our listeners are adult. Maturity is subjective, but hopefully that's what we are trying to be. Success is not black and white. Success also encompasses struggles, effort, and whatever attached to it behind the scene. And so start redefine our meaning of success. In psychology, there's one concept called growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So growth mindset is the mindset where people believe that there's nothing fixed. Success, intelligence, wealth, everything in this world is never static. We can improve. Another mindset is fixed mindset. Fixed mindset where people tend to say, kau boleh lah because you are smart. Or, you can do this because you are athletics. Or you can do this because you're rich. You can do this because your parents are this and this. So that's fixed mindset. That means they define success because people are born with it. And so that's another way that that I think will shift that mindset of comparing yourself to others and start to remind yourself, maybe I don't have what other people have, but whatever I have now is not static. I may not be a good person or a good student in first semester, but that does not mean I'm going to be achieving the same standard and same result throughout this degree or master. So people grow. That's growth mindset. Number 3, of course, we go back to what Islam taught us about principle of qana'ah. That is, be grateful with what we have. The concept of shukr, comparing yourself with others, somehow telling you that what Allah has given to you is not worth it. And that is very problematic. And so sometimes we need to stop, take a pause, and rethink about what our mind is trying to take us away from, and be grateful with what you have in hands. Because other people might not have even a portion of what we have. And so a fraction of what we have. And so I guess that's a constant reminder that we need to remind ourselves so that we are not trapped in this constant competitive and tendency to compare ourselves with others. It's exhausting if you live in that kind of life, I suppose.
Yeah, precisely, doctor. All right. Is faking it till you make it actually a healthy strategy, or does it just make the feeling of being a fraud worse over time?
Okay, all right. I think it depends on context, Sham. Because in psychology, we do have something similar. We call a behavioral activation. So what does it mean? So for example, if you have a patient who is experiencing depression, so one of the things that help us to improve our mental health, improve our depression, is physical activity. So if you think about it, those who are depressed might not feel like wanting to do any exercise at all. So what we tell our patient is, you don't have to be good at it, you just have to do it until you get to the point where, without realizing it, you're doing it. So which basically means you don't have to wait until your depression go away before you exercise. Because you know exercise will help you, but depression will not allow you to go out and exercise because you feel hopeless, you feel tired and whatnot. So behavioral activation means just go for it, faking it. So perhaps go for a short walk, just 1 round, the next day 2 rounds, 3 rounds, until the moment you start realize that, look, I've done it. I've actually stopped myself from hiding in my room, stop myself from running away from people. So that's faking it until you make it. So in that context, that's okay. But there are also contexts that I think faking it to make it may not be that healthy. So I give an example. When it comes to emotion, for example. So if you have relationship, you're not happy with the relationship. So if you ask the person, just fake it, just fake that you're happy. One day you'll be happy. So in this context, that's not healthy, because what you're doing is you are suppressing your emotions. You are disregarding your struggles up until one point you'll burn out. So back to the questions, I suppose there's some truth about it, but there's also some caution that we need to be mindful of, because that can be problematic. So for students, for example, fake it to make it can be, for example, you're not good at speaking in front of others. So what you can do, just do it.
Give it a try.
You might not be good at it first, but after 10, 15 attempts, you'll be better than your previous attempt. So that's faking it. But there are also other areas in life where that can never be good. For example, as I said, relationship, or even work, for example, that can be challenging. So you have to know, which one are you doing? Are you doing it to get better, or you're doing it to suppress your emotion? If you do it to suppress your emotion, then be cautious. You might not end up with good outcome.
Right. Okay. When we are stressed about not being good enough, yeah, why does our brain seems to shut down, making it even harder to concentrate or remember facts?
Okay. Our brain is complex and unique in a way that even though there are different regions, different parts of the brain, parts of the brain controlling our body, parts of the brain controlling our senses, parts of the brain controlling our thinking, but they are all interconnected. So there's one part in the brain we call a mesolimbic circuit and mesocortical circuit, which is basically a highway between your inner part of the brain that controls your emotion and the outer part of the brain, the front part of the brain that controls your thinking. This is the parts where we make judgment, parts where we prioritize, parts that we concentrate and focus. And there's a highway. When there's a highway, basically means there's a problem in one area, the problems can just find their way to another area. So stress coming from the middle part of the brain, the meso part of the brain. The thinking, studying, focusing, concentrating, reminding ourselves what needs to be done is the front part of the brain. So when the stress happening in the internal part of the brain that is not processed well, that is not managed well, eventually it will get to the other areas. So when it gets to the front part of the brain, that is when, as you said, we find it difficult to focus, difficult to memorize, difficult to make decisions. So same goes to, for example, if your mind is thinking about problems, so sometimes you tend to wonder about the problems, forgetting what's in front of you. So you get lost, you miss a junction, you hit something that not meant to be there. Then that's can also happen in your study life. So your mind should be focusing on one area, memorizing one parts of your study or topics that you are revising, but because your brain is flooded with problems, then it affects another area. So that's essentially what happened in the brain of people who are stressful.
I see. Right. Okay, Dr. Nizam. How can a student tell the difference between normal examiners and a mental health situation that needs professional intervention?
All right. So being nervous or stressed out because of exam is normal, is healthy physiological reaction. Because stress for exam means whatever you're doing is important to you. If you don't feel stressed about exam, then that's problematic. That means whatever you're doing doesn't matter to your life. So in that context, stress make you more alert, make you more cautious with your decisions, make you more alarmed if there's any problems or any issues that you need to address. But the problem with mental health is not isolated to the situation alone. So in normal exam stress, what happen is whatever stress that happen is isolated to the situation because of exam. But other things you can still carry on. You can carry on with your ibadah. You can carry on with your relationship with your friends, your family. If you are working, you can do your work. This particular area, I'm stressful because it has not settled yet. But with mental health, one of the features to indicate that it has now become mental health is when it has started to become pervasive, which basically means it start infecting other areas of life. So, for example, you feel anxious and your anxiety is no longer kept to the area of exam. You're anxious of going out, you're anxious of meeting people, you're anxious when there's a phone ringing, you're anxious when you see people crossing your room. And so that's not normal anymore, that's not exam stress anymore. So when it's pervasive. Number two, when it's prolonged. And so stress is exam perhaps, 2 weeks before exam? And when did it settle? Soon after exam.
Yes.
Perhaps you get anxious again when the results come out. So it's contingent to the time frame of whatever that situation you are in. But if your stress is continuous, days after days, weeks after weeks, months, then that's no longer normal stress. That's also another indication of mental health problem. And thirdly, and when your life start affected. So in 3 areas. One is your personal life, your sleep pattern, your eating pattern, your energy. Number 2 is your social life. So your relationship with others. Number 3 is your occupation. So students, your study. So when these areas of life started to be affected, then you have to start wonder if what you are experiencing is essentially mental health problem that need further assessment. You may not have mental disorder or mental illness per se, but it's actually no longer considered normal stress. So in medical term, we call it pathology. It's already abnormal, no longer a normal reaction to day-to-day human experience.
All right. Okay. All right. I think we have come to the last question, Dr. Nizam. Okay, what is one practical thing a student can do today to stop feeling like an outsider and start feeling like they have earned their spot?
Okay, all right. I'm going to share one simple practice. I share with it in one of my books, Solace Stress. It's called GLAD technique. GLAD. So GLAD technique is a framework that we use as part of reflective process. So one of the good exercise that we need to incorporate in our life is reflection. That is, put aside time to reflect upon what we've done, what we've achieved, and think about it. So in Islam, we call it muhasabah, which is an important act in which it is aimed at improving ourselves. So it's not finding fault of self-blaming, but find things where we can do better. So what is a GLAD framework? So G is grateful. That is, find things that you are grateful for. So GLAD technique, something that you can do perhaps at the end of the day, at the end of the semester, at the end of the year, at the end of the month. So sit down, you can write it somewhere, you can
It's like
discuss it with somebody that you are close with. Number one is, what are you grateful for? So think about perhaps 3 things that you are grateful for. So at the end of the semester, I'm grateful that I have finished this semester. I'm grateful that I have represented my mahallah for such and such. I'm grateful that I get new friends this semester. All right. L, learned. That is, what have you learned? So reflect upon what you have acquired from experience and knowledge perspective over this period of time. So at the end of semester, at the end of the year, at the end of the day even, perhaps list 3 things that you have learned. So today I learned that we can identify if we are imposter syndrome, and we can stop from becoming so. Or I can learn that this is how we cook such and such. Or I learn where to find cheap food in Mahallah, for example. It can be as small as that. Something that we learned. A is something that we have achieved, and so be it small, be it big. So perhaps you earn something, you succeed at something, or somebody praise you over little things that you've done, something that you have achieved. And lastly, D, something that you are delighted for, something that makes you happy. It doesn't have to be achievement. It doesn't have to be success related. Maybe I'm delighted that I have a roommate that's so good at cooking. I am happy that I have my kids around. I'm happy that my parents are still alive, for example. So why this framework useful is sometimes there will be moments in your life where you feel so low that you feel that you are nothing. I'm hopeless, I'm helpless, I'm useless, I'm worthless. And that can be a very, very tricky moment in life. So having this framework help you to realize that, hang on a minute, you might feel like that, you might think that way, but if you look at it, see, you've learned something. You achieved something, you've done something. There's something there that makes you happy. And this shows that you are not worthless, you're not useless. So I suppose this act of reflection may look simple, but again, it reminds us of the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon us. You don't have to do it in public, telling everyone what you're grateful for. You can do this in your quiet reflection moment after prayer, for example, while you're doing a brisk walk in the afternoon, or while you are wandering around parks, sitting by yourself, listening to some music. And this little thing I think help to push you forward. That means you still have things to look for in life. Whatever you are today does not means that's the end of it. Growth mindset, I said earlier on, you can continue to grow as a person. And the things that you've listed are the things that make you grow. You grow because you learn something. You grow because you've achieved something. You grow because Allah has given you something in life for you to feel. So that is something I suppose myself also need to be reminded. Our kids need to be reminded. Our friends need to be reminded. And let's do that as part of practice until one day that become a habit to us. Inshallah.
All right, Dr. Nizam, any last word of advice to all our students across the campus, Kuantan, Gambang, Paku, and also Gombak?
Okay. Sometimes I was a student before. I've gone through stages in life in studies where there were ups and downs, and I think it's common at some point in life we feel as if this is not where I can't take this anymore. I can't handle this anymore. So number one, what I want to remind you all is that feeling is normal. Everyone, no matter who they are today, perhaps have gone through that in life, but do not let yourself be defined by that moment. So assume that moment as clouds that comes and goes in your life. Who you are as a person stays, and that's the one that you need to care for and look after, not what happened around you. And so be grateful of what you have achieved. Be compassionate to yourself. Remind yourself that you also need love, need rest, need little praise and encouragement. So find that around you. Friends that supportive. Remind yourself, go back to your family, because your family will be the one that will keep reminding you that you are a good person, you're worth it. And so find all this strength that will help you to pass that stage in life and carry on with life. So it's okay to be not okay, but don't stay that way. Find ways so that you can recover from that. And that's what resilience is all about. Bouncing back from adversity, becoming better each day, because stress, adversity, difficulty are things that make up who we are as a person. So people say warrior are made up of scars from their battles. So perhaps that's your battles. So chin up, look forward, and keep fighting, inshallah. If everything that you have done still doesn't work, do get help. And that's also a sign of a resilient person. Inshallah.
So, in a nutshell, it can be concluded that imposter syndrome is just a mental loop that doesn't actually define your skill or your worth. Learning how to deal with it is a game changer, because you shouldn't have to feel like an outsider in a room you earned your way into. So thank you very much, Dr. Nizam. Thank you, CFS Connect, as well as MRC of Mahallah Sumayyah. Inshallah, we will see you in the next edition of our podcast. Assalamu alaikum.